Hi there, I'm Michael. I'm the catering manager from Feast Cafe, and today I'm actually going to show you my recipe, my own personal recipe I thought of. I'm calling it the Little Lost Bison. It's an infusion between our indigenous ingredients and an Italian style dish. So I'll begin. First of all, we're going to start with our, what should I call it, our marinade. So the marinade I made, it's basically just a combination of oil and olive oil and a little bit of garlic puree here, a little bit of salt and pepper, and a little bit of sweetgrass and chopped up sage. It's already in there. And then you take our nice indigenous style chunks of bison and you just mix it all up. And you basically let this just sit there for about a day, like overnight kind of thing, and you let the flavors just meld in itself and it'll be perfect. So after that's done, after a day of marinating, you'll end up with this, our marinated bison chunks. So this is like what it looks like when it's been infused with all the flavor of sweetgrass and sage. So once this is all nice and marinated, what we're going to do is we're going to make the pasta. And while we're making the pasta, we're going to sear off these bison chunks. Now, I'm a big fan of medium rare steaks, so when you sear it off, I sear it off so that there's still a little bit of blood inside. These are basically like steak chunks, so it's perfectly fine and okay. Before you start cooking anything, you want to get your water ready. Make sure it's nice and warm, because you want to start making your pasta in there. So you want to get it into a nice rolling boil. A rolling boil means is that when the water starts boiling, it'll basically just, you want it at a slow boil. So that way it won't be overboard, like when it's too hard of a boil, it'll just keep going really hard. You'll lose most of your water. So you want it to basically be at a nice calm boil, just a nice roll. Anyways, next this is going to be our pan for searing our bison. So you're going to want to spray it down with either oil spray, or just use regular oil. I personally prefer to use oil spray because you won't get as much of a flame coming out from it. If you use oil, use a very small amount, otherwise the oil from your marinade and this will cause it to shoot flames up. So you gotta be careful. So I'm gonna give it a nice spray. Now this marinade, I forgot to mention, actually has a little bit of lemon juice in it. Nice little lemon. You can use lemon juice like from a bottle. It's fine. It's really cheap and affordable. It's also, it lasts a long time because you can just put it in the freezer. It basically lasts forever at that point if you don't have access to a fresh lemon. Fresh lemon is a little bit more optimal. You also add a little bit of maple into this, like a shot of maple, just to add that little bit of flavor. The maple is to allow the beef to have a little bit extra like sugar to the meat itself, while the citrus from the acid of the lemon actually helps break down the meat of the bison so it's nice and tender. Let's start by heating up our pan here. So let's get that guy heated up, and while this one's heating up, we're going to get a little bit of oil in this one. Just a shot. It's perfect right there. Don't need much. Let's give it a nice little spread around. Boom. Let that heat up. Don't want to get in too hot, otherwise your oil will start to burn. Now you could use butter. Butter is an okay ingredient for this, but butter, as pure as it is, it'll burn if you're not careful. So I find oil's a little better. Don't use olive oil. That'll for sure burn. It has the burn rate the heat level for olive oil to burn is very low, so it won't take much. So just use regular oil like canola or vegetable is fine. So, while that pan is heating up for us, this little bit here, once it's nice and warm, you can tell by putting your hand just a little bit close to it, and you can feel the heat coming from it. This one's already almost there, so let's take a little bit of garlic, little salt and pepper just for extra seasoning. And you can grab your tongs. You want to break that up. So basically what you want to do is you want to make it so that your garlic puree just gets a nice little golden toastiness. Now you can tell if it's getting too overcooked because it'll start turning brown. If it turns brown, then you've cooked it, overcooked it. So you want to be very careful with that. So I can tell already that I'm starting to do that, so I'm going to turn this down just slightly just to make sure I don't overcook it. Now, you will have your garlic puree sticking to the pan. It's not a big deal, because what we are also going to use is we're going to take this little shot of just a tiny little half-ounce shot of, what should I call it, wine, white wine, and that'll basically give us our deglazing. What white wine does is it deglazes your pan of all the flavor. So, stand back. This is going to be a little flamey. As you can tell, all of our flavor came off. Exactly what we want. So now, we can add in our milk, our cream. So this is heavy cream. You want to make sure it's heavy cream because it needs to be like whipping cream. It needs to be able to form itself properly inside the pan when it cooks. Milk won't really work that well. So, our other pan here is nice and warm, ready to go. Again, be very careful with all this oil. If you're not careful, you will splash yourself and it will hurt. Now you want to grab another tong for this, as this will have its own flavors, and you want to keep it like that. See how it's got that nice little bit of searing on it, nice little bit of brownness? Exactly what you want. That flavor right there. Look at all that flavor. That's about medium rare for me right now, so I don't need that on anymore. That can just sit there now. And let's go back to our pasta sauce. This pasta, while it's boiling like this, you'll get a nice little bubble. Again, you want to make sure it's not too high, because if it gets too high, you will burn the milk. Milk burns at a it burns very easily, and it will burn on the bottom of this, so you gotta be very careful, especially when you're adding cheese. So, we're gonna add our cheese in now. Add some parm. And this is our gorgonzola. You don't need much. This is very powerful stuff. Just need enough for flavor. That's it. Boom. Done. Next we're going to mix all this up. And we're going to let it boil out. As you can see the bubbles boiling there, that means that the liquid is slowly starting to thicken and it's boiling. So you want to let it do that very slowly, otherwise you'll burn the bottom. While that's happening, we're going to get our noodles ready inside here. Get them nice and warm. Now I pre-cooked my noodles here. I pre-cooked them at a level called al dente. Basically what that means is that when you cook it, you can look inside the center of it, and inside the center it'll have the tiniest little white dot in there. That means that the tiniest little amount of it is not fully cooked. So you can just finish cooking it in here like this. Ooh, that's hot. Always make sure you grab some cloth or something to make sure you're handling really hot things like this. Make sure you drain all the excess water. And boom. Throw that bad boy in there. And you want to let the noodles cook in with the sauce, because the noodles is a starch and it will absorb all the flavor as well with everything else that's going in there. So if you notice it's getting a little too thick, you can add a little bit of cream just to thin it out a little, so you have time to cook with it a bit more. It's always a good idea to test your sauce. You don't need much, you just need a little bit of test. It's perfect. All right. So next we're going to plate it. Now when you're plating pasta, you always want to give it a nice little twirl in this plate, like that, and that way it builds up a nice and high. Get all that nice, beautiful flavor that's left over in there. like that. Next, we're going to take our wonderful looking stick chunk, our nice bison chunks. And then next, we're actually going to give it a nice little garnish of this gorgonzola. Just a little bit. Not much. And we'll finish the garnish off. A little cedar. Boom. And that is the little Lost Bison.